could watch it later. So we're going to get that started, and then I am going to turn it over to Sam to talk about student lists and tracking items, all the things that are popping up quite a bit this week. And so hopefully this will help you manage some of those tasks and following up with students and things like that. So I will turn it over to Sam.
Absolutely. Thank you all for being here today. So as Rachel said, for this workshop, we will be focusing on how to find specific groups of students within MU Connect using the connections and filters. And we will then also talk about how you can download a list of these students and what information is included on that download. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And can everyone see that? The presentation? Okay, perfect. And so before we begin, we wanted to highlight the impact of the various roles and relationships you have in the system and how they can impact the students and information that you see. So roles are the name set of privileges that determines what actions and information can be seen when interacting with the system. And then on the other hand, the relationships are the connections to various groups of students based on a given role. Just making sure I catch everyone as they are coming in.
And if folks could mute themselves while we're presenting, just since we're recording, it'll make it a little bit cleaner.
Perfect. So the roles and therefore these relationships are strictly added on a need-to-know basis based on the information you provided in a security request form or through the information provided in Canvas for your instructor role. So if you are tied to a course in Canvas, that information also pulls into MU Connect. And then we also wanted to talk about the levels of access. So this screen highlights the typical access setup for academic units across campus, for example. So on the left, we have the role name. So as you can see, we have Unit Academic Advisor. And so this is the one-to-one connection that you all have to students through MyZoo. So in MyZoo, it shows the student's advisor. So that is pulled in from MyZoo, like I said. And so we do not actually assign that role here in the office. That access as an advisor is pulled in directly through MyZoo. So if any changes are needed down the line, those changes would need to be made directly through MyZoo. Then we have the unit major advisor. So this is a connection to students within a certain program or major. So if you have different certificates or different, if you have a BA and a BS offered in your department, this would be some of those examples of different majors or programs you could be tied to. Then we have the unit advisor role. So this is connection to all students within the academic unit. So that would be all journalism students, for example, or all CAFNA students. And then the campus advisor role is that connection to all students on campus. And then the instructor role, although not listed here, we just wanted to highlight that this, again, is pulled in through Canvas. So that instructor role will give you that connection to students enrolled in your course through Canvas. And then I briefly wanted to touch on the tier system that we have as well that we implemented this past semester. So the first tier includes the attendance concern, participation concern, and missing assignment flags. On this screen. So the first tier, as I was mentioning, there is no action that is required from any staff members across campus, and students will actually receive automated emails when a flag is raised with different resources they can utilize across campus to help address some of these concerns. Then this second tier involves the low exam score, poor class performance, and new student check-in academic concern. And so staff members from athletics, TRIO, CASE, and the Learning Center will be the primary responders to perform outreach for these different flags for their given groups of students. So for example, athletics will reach out to all athletes, and TRIO will reach out to TRIO students that are not in athletics, for example. And then we also have the Tier 3 flag, which includes flags that are considered to need an urgent intervention. So these are the student flag 6 times, the in danger of being dropped, and in danger of failing flags. So we also wanted to highlight that even though we do have different tier systems and different primary responders, that you can use any of these other tier flags to kind of inform the conversations and meetings you're having with students. So if you are talking with a student about the in danger of being dropped flag, you can still bring in, if you also saw that they had an attendance concern in other classes, you can still talk about those as well. But there is just no outreach that is needed from you based on that. Okay. And now we wanted to talk about adding filters. So in the screen, you can see the My Students tab. So based on this connection that you have here, so for example, I'm using Chris's profile, and so the connection is to our test Canvas course site. So we have that connection as that course site in Canvas. And so we can see all of our list of students. So we have 14 students in that class. And so if we wanted to look for specific groups of students within this class, we could click on this Add Filters button up here. And then this is the box that will appear. And so the default page is for tracking items. So this allows you to look for specific tracking items that a student may have. So this section up here with the status determines if you're looking at active flags, cleared flags, or both. Then you have the tracking type. So this includes flags are searchable, but also kudos. If you want to send a message to students that have kudos in certain classes, you can do that. We also have to-dos and referrals. So for example, any tutoring referral can be filtered by the Learning Center, and they can do outreach based on that. And then you have the specific item name here. So if you want to look just beyond just any flag, you can actually look for a specific name. So with that tier system that we mentioned earlier, this would be like the attendance concern. I want to see all students with an attendance concern flag, or I want to see all students with an in danger of failing flag. And you can also actually select multiple tracking items at once, and it'll pull all those students with any of those tracking items. And then another piece we wanted to highlight is down here is the creation date. So this will help you search for items that were created within a certain time frame. For example, if you wanted to look at students that received a flag in the 4th week of the semester, you could set the creation date to the start of the 4th week, and then the creation date to either a specific day, maybe Friday, or if you wanted to today, you can set that filter. And then this kind of helps you narrow down the list. I know based on some numbers Chris sent this morning that we do have a lot of items that have been raised in the system. And so this can help you narrow down those lists as well. And we also wanted to mention for creation date. For example, if you are searching on a Tuesday from like Monday to Tuesday, you want to put Tuesday in the creation date because you can have flags that were raised after 5 p.m. So instructors can raise flags at any time. So you'll just need to kind of have that overlap of when it stops and when it starts, just so you don't miss flags that were potentially raised after you looked at the system. And then this next piece that we wanted to highlight was the attribute section. So beyond tracking items, you can actually look for specific groups of students that have different attributes in their student folder. So when you pull up a student's folder, they have information based on your permissions and what you were able to see. They have information like what year they are, their undergraduate GPA, if they have enrollment holds, if they are enrolled in the next semester. You can also see that we just had a campaign for the not enrolled flags. So that is the type of information you'd be able to see. We also have some financial aid information about FAFSA and SAP status. And then especially relevant right now, we are in the middle of the new student check-in. So if a student takes the new student check-in, information about how they answered will also be added to the students folder. So what you can do is you can actually search by that given attribute. And so the example that we wanted to look at was the new student check-in academic coursework. So you can specify the attributes within a specific term. So for this semester, we would put the term as fall 2022. And then you have 3 different options for a value. So on the right, we have assigned to student. So for some of the attributes, we have a case attribute, we have a trio attribute, an athletics attribute. So what you can actually do is you can select assigned to student, and that means the student has the attribute in their student folder. And then not assigned to student is that they don't have that attribute assigned to them in their student folder. So they won't see that in their in the information in the students network folder. And then the specific value is that for other attributes like academic level, you'll have specific values that you can choose from. So for example, with the academic level, we have options to look at freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and graduate students. So you would just select from this drop-down arrow which one makes the most sense and that you would like to look for. And so for the new student check-in academic coursework, for example, they can answer low risk, moderate risk, or high risk. And so then you can select that specific value and it will look for all students, for example, with that high risk response. And that is the students that you will pull. And we just kind of wanted to show examples of what has been happening based on the tier system. So on the left, this is the filters that the Learning Center will actually add to find students that they will outreach to for the tier 2 flags. So as you can see, they have athlete, trio, and case. And for each of those, they have not assigned to students. So that will make sure that they are not outreaching to athletes, students that are not in trio, and students are not in case, so that there's not overlap with the other departments and students aren't getting multiple outreaches from them. And then on the right, we can see what an academic advisor might have as their filters for the tier 3 flags that they're outreaching to. So that they would have it as active flags, they would have the tracking item as a flag, and then the item name, they are reaching out to in danger of being dropped and in danger of failing flags. So we would include those item names there. And then we also added that the creation date was the first day of the term. And so that will pull all students that have an academic concern flag raised, or the in danger of being dropped or in danger of failing flags starting on August 22nd. And then we also wanted to provide an example of what you would see as well to download a list of students. And we can also go through this in real time. But based on the filters that you have added in the system, you will see a list of students. So these students are listed here that have tracking items. And what you can do is you can actually download a list into Excel to perform outreach for specific groups of students. So if we wanted to perform outreach on Sean and Truman the Tiger for their attendance concern flag, what we would need to do is click on the boxes next to their names, as you can see it's highlighted here, and then click on download. And then this will pull up an Excel list that will include their names and the tracking item information. And we'll also see an example of what that looks like. And so this kind of highlights what is included in that download in the tracking item tab. So if you were to pull, you can do the same thing in the students tab where you can download a list of students, but the information in that Excel document isn't as robust. So in the tracking item tab, you'll actually pull information about the tracking item itself. So what is included in that download is the student name, their ID number, their email. It'll also include their phone numbers, which is a new addition this semester. It will include the tracking item name, what type of tracking item is. If you are looking at referrals, kudos, or flags, those will all be included in that report as well. Then you can see when it was raised and who it was raised by. And you can also see a course context if it was raised in a specific course. You can also potentially see who it was cleared by if you were looking at resolved flags as well. And while I pull up the other screen, does anyone have any questions so far?
I have a question on the attributes section of the filters. So under the specific value option, I know some areas have a drop down of those different options there while others don't. And I realized if I'm looking for something specific, for example, a student's academic plan, I have to type in it what it is exactly. And are there any other ways to like get a drop down for certain areas?
That's a great question. And at the moment, no. We do have, that's a great point that we would like to highlight too, is that for program plans or sub plans, we do actually have a link on our website to a list of all of the available options so that you can just copy and paste because the system is very case specific. So we actually do have a running list and I can show you all here. But as of right now, there isn't a drop down for all of the programs just because of how many there are. And so if we go into our MU Connect website homepage, if you click on it for advisors and staff, you'll see this page pop up. And then if you scroll down, there is the attribute guide specific value criteria PDF. And if you click on that, it will take you to the list of all of those plans and you can just copy and paste it into that specific value. And it's sorted by college as well.
Awesome, thank you. I did not know this existed. This is great.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah, we know that that can be tricky. I cannot remember all of the case sensitive ones. So we hope that this would be able to help that.
I will add one other pro tip. In specific value, start your string with an asterisk and it will return anything that contains the following characters. So for example, if you're looking for anybody in chemistry or biochemistry, but asterisk CHEM, and you'll return field values for everyone who's in chemistry, biochemistry, regardless of what else is in that plan. So that's another handy way to get at something. If you know you've got 90% of the code in your head, but you don't remember the exact cutoff or something, throw the asterisk in there and it'll give you all sorts of new options.
Perfect. So I just wanted to show kind of what this looks like in real time. And so I'm using Chris's profile, so you will not see this at the top of the screen. But we are in the dev site again. So one thing to mention too is that if you are looking for tracking items for your advisees, for example, the connection that you would need to have is the academic advisor role. So as you can see here, if you drop down, these are the different roles that Chris has. So he would just, if he had an academic advisor role, he would just need to click on that. And so the roles that we mentioned at the beginning will impact those groups of students that you would be able to see. So if you are outreaching to students, like all students in journalism, for example, you would need that unit advisor role, and then you could see tracking item information and student information from there. And so for this, we are going to use that instructor connection to the specific course. And we are going to filter by attendance concern flags. So we are going to click on that Add Filters button. And then we are going to go to Tracking Type and click on Flag. And then the item name, we want to look specifically for an attendance concern. Just because I see Sean and Truman both have one. And we are going to click on Submit. And then as you can see, these are the 2 students that have an attendance concern flag in that course. So what we can do is we can click on the Select All button, and it does mean Select All now, which is a great new addition that the vendor created. So when you click on the Select All button, it will be all students that populate. And so it just won't be like the first page of students, it'll be all students now. And so what you can do is come up to the top right and click on Download. And then as you can see, it'll have a download folder for the tracking items. And that's usually the name that appears when you download a list. And if you click on that, you will see, this Excel document. So you can see that Sean and Truman, you can see their emails, their phone numbers. So Truman's phone number has populated. And then all the information about the flag as well. So an attendance concern flag that was raised in the MU Connect site in Canvas. And then you can also see who it was raised by as well. And I think that was everything from us. Is there any other questions we can help answer?
Or scenarios you want us to demonstrate would be the other, if you have a specific group you're trying to get at and you need some help finding it.
I have a question. So I have connections that say academic advisor and then academic major advisor. What's the difference between those populations?
Absolutely. So the academic advisor would be that one-to-one connection in MyZoo. So all of your direct advisees.
Okay.
And then that academic major advisor would be if you're looking at specific programs. So in A&S, for example, they have constitutional democracy would be one of the majors that they can have. So that's kind of like a broader group of students.
So I advise for political science, economics, and public administration. So would academic major advisor be all of those students, even if they're not assigned to me?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, the academic advisor rules pulls from MyZoo. So if you're assigned to that student in MyZoo, that's the group of students it's pulling from.
I have a question about a particular scenario. So if students make an appointment with librarians, and this is for librarians, and we want to say, okay, they made that appointment, we need to pass this information along to another person, not a librarian, in another office, to say the student was here and it's complete. Just that, no action to be taken. Is there a flag that we can use? Is there something we can use to refer that?
Sure, I can hop on. So would you be reaching back out to an instructor, or do you mean other people across campus?
Another unit on campus where we'd need to report that, yes, they did come in, so they did complete what you'd set up for the students.
Sure. So
Training, whatever.
Absolutely. So one thing is that appointments can actually be viewed by other people on campus. So any appointment that you make with a student will be captured in their student folder. As long as the people that you are wanting to provide that information to has that access to see those appointments, they'll be able to go into the student folder and see that that has been completed. Chris or Rachel, is there anything you'd like to add with that?
You might highlight, you can pull lists of students based on an appointment, like if they've had or not had an appointment. So that could be a way to identify students who have done X, Y, or Z, and you could download that list. Similarly, if you were wanting to reach out to students who haven't come in for an appointment, you'd be able to pull that. Maybe if you want to show where that is, Sam.
But there is no place
Sam,
to a
Sam and Ray-
referral and a notification. Is that?
It depends on the item. There are some items where you can close the loop and say, yes, student came in, and it'll send something to the person that raised that flag. But it depends on the item type.
Okay.
Sam, if specificity helps, NOV is referring to our office, undergrad research. So if a student meets with a subject librarian, we're considering having that credit towards our workshop series. And so we're trying to figure out how their librarians can leave a follow-up note that will grab my attention so that I'll see it and I can process it on our end. So if the librarians had a specific note that tagged undergrad research, and then I could search for those notes, is that a way to do that?
There are a few things we could do to play with that. One might be a referral to the research librarians, where then once undergraduate research says, hey, go check out the librarians, they have all these fantastic resources, then NOV has that meeting, could then clear out the referral, and that would then send the note back to you who raised that referral on the student. We could also explore one of the lesser utilized pieces of MU Connect, to-dos on students, where you could then load in really just a checklist, right? Student has, in this case, one item on their checklist. Their to-do is they need to go chat with a research librarian. And then if they do, whoever has that meeting can go in and check that off, and we could set settings for that item specific to it. So it would just be the relevant units. So we could set the view permissions or clear permissions on an item by item basis, in much the same way we do for flags and referrals. So really, the world is your oyster. There's so many options, right? And we'd love to chat with you a bit more and find out which one will really be the best use case for your particular scenario.
Yeah, I think maybe a separate chat might help. Thanks.
Any other questions? Maybe the one other feature, Sam, to highlight would be the attribute no outreach. If you want to show an example of that one. That's a newer addition, an attribute. I believe it was last year it was created. And it can be helpful if you're trying to track who you've already done outreach to, or who, which would then give you some options in terms of who still needs outreach and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So let me go back, never mind. And so we would kind of get to that the same way we would get to the other ones of this would be an add filter or edit filters if you already have filters added. If you click on that button, it'll be under the attributes tab on the left. And then if you click on add attribute, we have the academic flag with no outreach. So we can click on that. And then we can click on submit. Let that load, but this is kind of a tricky one since it's a very small cohort that we are looking for. But then it'll show if they have a tracking item that has not had any comments added to it, and that has not received any outreach by those who are going to be responding to the flag. And Chris was one of the masterminds behind that. So if he has anything else to add.
It's a really fun feature. And yes, right, I understand the inherent ego of me saying that since I did help develop it. But I really do think that it is a useful tool. We created it specifically because we had lots of feedback where folks requested a way to go through. They said, you know, we've got these different flags raised at different times, and I'm keeping track of who I've talked to already and who I haven't yet on a separate sheet of paper. And how do I make sure that I know which students I've already emailed and which ones I haven't? And so this attribute lets you do exactly that. Any student who has this assigned has at least one academic flag from our list of core academic flags on our website that has not yet received outreach. Outreach is denoted by someone adding a comment. So if I have a flag raised on me and Rachel shot me an email and said, hey, I'd really love to chat with you and help work with you on whatever this issue might be, she leaves a note that says, sent Chris an email, and poof, now that particular flag is noted as having had some outreach. So I won't have this attribute on me. But if that hasn't happened yet, then this runs on a nightly basis. And you'll be able to see, oh gosh, Chris has this flag that's been raised on him. I want to make sure I reach out. And that'll help you prioritize your list of duties and list of students that you're reaching out to if you're trying to get to those that you've already had a chat with or those that you haven't yet.
Chris, is that no outreach flag? Does that go to just like the second and third tier folks, or is that for all three tiers of
So
flag?
that is an excellent question. Right as of this moment, so since we're recording this, let's timestamp it, 12:34 p.m. on September 14th, 2022. It is all three, but we are in the process of splitting that out so that there will be a separate tier 2 no outreach and a tier 3 no outreach, since we have different folks taking lead on those different tiers. That will then help academic advisors versus a CASE or TRIO or the Learning Center know that, yes, this is one of my flags that I'm going to reach out for. So perfect question, and you're
That
just
is going to
slightly
be
ahead.
That is going to be super helpful. Do you know when that differentiation will be made?
That should go live next week.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah, also now we've got you recorded saying that's going to be super helpful. So we're both on the record here.
Yes, you just gave me a birthday present.
Oh, wonderful. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Any other questions or folks who have been using the system and want to show their best practices or tips? Katie Bartho, I might pick on you for a second. I know you do a lot of downloading lists and mail merging. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, just exploring the system has been very helpful and like testing out the different filters just for fun. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that sometimes. But I use it quite a bit for tracking items, especially within our academic unit, like in danger of failing and things along those lines. And so whenever I want to send out a mass email to students for the in danger of failing flag, I will use that filter to pull an Excel sheet of those students, and then we'll send out a mail merge based off of that Excel sheet. I also a lot of times will use the filter, specifically the attribute ones, if I want to know like an undergraduate admit term for whatever reason. And it's honestly, even just outside of tracking items, really helpful just to get numbers of certain things that you can't, I mean, it's easier than sending in an SIS request sometimes just because it comes right through. But yeah, I would say just play around with the attributes and you can find a lot of great information there.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, well, if there's no other questions or tips, I think we'll wrap it up. If you do think of anything, you can always reach us, or if you run into an issue, you can always reach us at muconnectsupport@missouri.edu. And someone from our office will respond in a timely fashion and get back to you to resolve or brainstorm ways that we can solve a problem for you. So thank you for today. And like I said, we'll see you at the next workshop, or let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. I have a quick one. Is the PowerPoint you did, is that going to be available somewhere?
We can put it on the website.
Yeah, if you
when we
could,
share
just those screens, yeah, are
Okay.
helpful sometimes. Thanks.
Yep, sure can.